All right, welcome back to 2 to 20, the podcast that empowers women to build, fund, and scale their businesses. I'm your co-host, Julia Belt, and I'm here today with my good friend, Sam Pantazopoulos. Hi, Sam. Welcome to the podcast.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sam is the CEO and co-founder of Vizor. She's an extraordinary entrepreneur, someone that I have personally looked up to for years. Not only is she a dynamic social entrepreneur, she's a writer, a speaker, a brand strategist, connector of people and ideas, and aspiring pop star. Sam has been recognized with multiple entrepreneurship awards, including the Rising Star Entrepreneur of the Year at the Women's Venture Summit. But beyond all of these accolades, Sam is someone that I deeply admire. Her intelligence, steadfastness under pressure, and unwavering commitment to her mission are truly inspiring. She's not just a brilliant entrepreneur, but she's a beacon of wisdom and strength in my life, and an incredible friend and mentor to me, both personally and professionally. Did I sum it
Wow.
up?
Wasn't ready for all that. Thank you so much. That was too kind, I would say.
No, I'm so happy to be interviewing you. You've always been mission driven in all the work that you do. And so I'd love to dive into what inspired you to launch Vizor and how this mission has expanded over time.
It's a really roundabout story when you get to where we are today, but I was just a college student that was in a social entrepreneurship club, and we were given a challenge, come up with a business model that's something you've personally experienced and could also impact the world in a really positive way. I hated working out and had the idea that if I created an app where every day I could work out, I would have the opportunity to donate meals and earn rewards. I would be motivated to do it. And that was really the core concept of the business. We launched it back in 2019. It's significantly evolved since then. We're still in the incentive space, but B2B versus consumer. So, really, a personal desire, personal need is what set me down the entrepreneurship path.
I love it. So you said that this was in college. So did you feel like you were always going to be an entrepreneur? I mean, I know that you've shared stories with me personally about little businesses or ideas that you had. So it felt like you've always been on that path. But is that true?
The writing was definitely on the wall. I was always doing business models as a kid. Especially with Nick, my current COO, he lived across the street. We were getting into any kind of thing that we could. I also wanted to be a marine biologist. I wasn't quite sure how it would unfold, but the gifting, I think, for entrepreneurship was like in my skill set from a really early age. It came naturally. I enjoyed it. My dad was an entrepreneur. So everything led to that path for sure.
I love it. Okay, so now I want to dive into funding. So every business and every founder has unique ways of funding their business. But I feel like you have a really interesting story around how you were able to fund Vizor. So please share a little bit more about that.
It was also a roundabout path. It wasn't the traditional, we raised around, closed it really quickly, and got to work. We started the business with no experience in business or entrepreneurship. Both my cousin and co founder and I were 21 and 22. So we had an idea of what funding would look like and came to realize it was quite different from that. We started the traditional friends and family angel route, talking to investors, trying to find opportunities to get a deal done. We ended up winning a pitch competition that had $500,000 in a cash prize at the end of it. That really became our seed round, even though we didn't go into funding with that as our expectation. It gave us enough resources to start building our MVP, to get some traction, to put a story together, which was required to actually close the angel round that we ended up doing. So this story is really kind of dragged over several years, but we did end up doing an angel round, and then we did a seed round with a few VCs that participated a year or so after that.
Okay, so you mentioned something that the original grant or the pitch competition gave you the funding to build the MVP, which means you didn't have the MVP or product done when you were first pitching. So how did you get around that?
We had a very minimal viable product, I would say. I think of our MVPs in two phases. I wanted to get the app built We didn't have any money to do it. I go into a development shop. I give them the whole vision of what I'd like them to build. They said, that's great. Let's do it. It'll be $100,000. I didn't have $100,000. So fortunately, they taught me about two tools that I used to create a clickable prototype. It didn't work. There was no code, but you could tap it and then it would show you the experience of the app. And Dylan, my co-founder, and I would use that in meetings to get businesses to say, hey, we'll participate in this program. We'll sign up and work with you. So we started to build a customer base. In theory, they weren't paying yet, but they'd made a commitment. And we could use that in the conversations that we then had. We ended up working with a freelancer to get the first version of the app built, and then later had to work with an agency, really rebuild it from the ground up because it did not work as fully intended. However, each of these steps, we had enough to get to the next level.
So I think the moral of the story is don't underestimate the power of a clickable prototype. I think especially if you're not technical, um, Sam, you were really the one that taught me how to use Figma and shared with me that you can sell concepts on clickable prototypes without having any code in the background, and it's a really cheap way to validate ideas quickly. And you can easily change things because you're not requiring any code. If you're a new founder in the tech space and you don't have technical, even if you do have technical skills, I think it's great to do everything as clickable prototypes first.
Yeah, I always say until you get something into a customer's hand, you have no idea what they want. So you do not want to go ahead building too quickly. You just want to get something up that you can start socializing and get feedback on as quickly and as inexpensively as possible.
Yeah, so true. Okay, so speaking of that feedback, taking us back to like the 0 to 1 stage, what would you say was your rose and your thorn from the first year being in business?
The first year was just so fun in a lot of different ways. Dylan and I were living together. We were working out of the house. It was just, it could be a TV show. It was like full startup life from the earliest days. There's a rose and a thorn to that, though. The rose was it was so expansive. We were constantly meeting new people. We were socializing the idea. Our network was growing. Our skill set was growing. Our entrepreneurship was growing. Like everything about us was growing in this really interesting and fun way. But I think we had also kind of bought the narrative that entrepreneurship has to be really hard and it has to be really grueling and it has to be a struggle. So we were pouring everything into it and we weren't being as efficient as we could have been if I had corrected that mindset a bit earlier. So I think that's the thorn. We were spinning our wheels in a lot of ways and making things harder than they needed to be because we thought that was what had to happen. And had we shifted our mindset, I think some of those things could have come easier.
Interesting. So you think it's all around mindset, and it sounds to me a little bit like self-care and maybe boundaries as well.
Everything at the end of the day in business, I believe, comes back to mindset. It impacts every conversation, every decision you make, how you perceive opportunities, how you perceive obstacles. Step one, foundation, most important thing.
Love it. And you and I have had a lot of conversations around this as well. I'm laughing because this is something that I have struggled with and continue to struggle with. So if you're out there listening, definitely hear Sam's words loudly. Okay, so now I want to dive into the pivot. So you successfully navigated a pretty significant pivot, which you alluded to earlier, about a year ago. So can you tell us a little bit more about the pivot to B2B and how you knew it was time for that pivot?
Yeah, so we had built the app and it was working as intended. You could work out, you could turn that workout into impact, you could go redeem something at a local restaurant, like a coffee or something with a friend. And that was the vision. It was growing in San Diego really quickly. People were really excited about it. We went to spread outside of San Diego in March of 2020 with national restaurants and national studios. And they all shut down a month later. So we had to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? How do we expand what we've done in San Diego if there's no local ecosystems to tap into? Who knew how long the quarantine would last and all of the restrictions? Through a series of decisions, we ended up pivoting to retail, where you could work out, donate, and then go to a retailer and get a free product as a reward. But what we were struggling with this entire time was the marketplace dynamics. You needed to have enough users that were engaging with the incentives for it to be exciting for brands to participate. So things were growing. We got to 150,000 users, 5 million workouts turned into meals, but we hit this cap where we really couldn't grow beyond that. And it was really our customers who saw the opportunity first, that if we took our incentives outside of our app and put them on the internet, all of a sudden we could reach a lot more people. Apps do actually restrict user bases at the end of the day, because you have to download and create an account and all these things. So it was a really natural progression to take the incentive tooling that we'd built and put it into this B2B model. We'd been building it for years. We were going in that direction. We just didn't know it until we arrived, and the opportunity was honestly brought forth by customers.
Interesting. That you bring up a good point too, that it is so important to have those conversations with your customers and constantly be soliciting feedback. So I'm curious, were the result of those conversations you asking certain questions to pull it out of them, or were they coming to you making those suggestions, which led to pulling the incentives piece out of the app?
It's so nebulous to describe because it's thousands of conversations internally and externally to kind of arrive at a conclusion. So you're picking up different threads here and there. I think in this instance, it was hearing the same things over and over and over again. And somebody said it, I can send after, and maybe we can put it in the show notes, but a founder's first concept for their business is largely self-interested, because they're building something that they want to use. And when your customers give feedback, it starts to become something that the market is interested in. And the market has to be interested in it for it to create real value. So I think those conversations started in 2018, and our discovery things and meetings and conversations around what people wanted and what solved their problems. And it just stacked year over year over year. We were building it in the back end, and then eventually it became the core product.
Yeah. I think that's so important to be, yeah, listening from the very beginning. And it's really hard sometimes to disconnect between what you think people want and what people actually want. And then taking it a step further, people might say they want something, but what are they willing to pay for to solve a problem? So I think not only is it important in filling a need, but it's the urgency around that they're willing to, one, spend money, and two, maybe be more forgiving of an early version of the product because they just need it so badly. And I think you guys have executed that so beautifully.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the vitamin versus painkiller. Is it a nice to have or is it a need to have? And if it's a need to have, there's a lot more grace, I think, to make things work, because people need the solution at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay. So then coming back to you said that you guys were having so much good traction before the pivot, but then it seemed like there was sort of a slowdown and sort of a cap in terms of your reach. Um, Talking about product market fit, it feels like you found product market fit with previous to the pivot, but then it reached a slowing point, and then you made this decision to pivot. And then was it immediately like, wow, we found product market fit so much faster this second time around due to the pivot? Or what was that like for you?
Very much so. I think product market fit isn't something you have to hunt for. When you have it, you have it. So if you're trying to find ways to justify, hey, maybe this is product market fit, or I got really strong feedback over here, maybe this is it, that's probably not it. It's going to be very, very clear, very direct, very overt. And I think we had seen the opportunity in the conversations that we were having. So the product market fit was what gave us the conviction to say, this should be the core product and this should be our core focus moving forward. Because finding product market fit is what opens everything up for the business, although it's the hardest thing to do, I think, in startups in general.
Yeah, I think I read a stat that 80% of founders fail because they didn't find product market fit. And it's a really frustrating place to be. And so, do you have any advice for founders out there that are probably saying to themselves right now, "Oh wow, like I don't think I have it, but I'm not willing to give up. I still feel like there's something here and I'm determined to figure it out." What would your advice be to those founders?
I've always said since the beginning of the company, I think if you care and you try and you stay in the game long enough, success is inevitable. But those are three challenging things to do when you're constantly coming up against brick walls. So, putting your best foot forward, continuing to do that, and expanding your timeline long enough, both with resources, you have enough money to keep powering that search, but also your stamina. I think that 80% number probably includes both. A lot of people run out of capital, huge concern, but a lot of people run out of stamina because they have lost the emotional resiliency to stay in the game. And another quote, I don't remember who said it, but it's not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get up. And product market fit is just that last time somebody got up and they quite easily could have not.
Yeah, I just wonder how many founders were like so close to finding it and then but they gave up a little bit too soon. So if you're out there listening, keep going, I think is the moral of the story. Okay, I want to ask you some rapid fire questions. Okay, so favorite book right now or in general?
For entrepreneurs or personally,
Why don't you
or
give
both
one
of
of
them.
each?
For entrepreneurs, I think the Lean Startup. It's a very early stage book. It's if you're just getting started, but it touches on a lot of these concepts of do not spend too many resources or too much time until you start to get the ball rolling and getting positive feedback. Personally, it's actually a book you gave me. I really like the surrender experiment. I think for the mindset side of the fence, it's really important to just be open to the nudgings from the universe that you get and let things guide you where you're meant to be.
Love it. Love it. Okay, favorite tools that you use daily. These can be either sales related tools. We mentioned Figma already, but any other tools that you use that have been a game changer.
I love Slack. Frequent communication, keeping everybody in the loop. Shared channels are huge for visibility. We're a remote team. And my CTO really is the one that initiated and pushed this, but dropping random things in that chat so everybody can see it helps build a lot of cross pollination that doesn't happen in a remote environment. So Slack. And then I have this spreadsheet I use. It's literally just called Insight Stock. But when I find things that are interesting, either a quote or something I read in a book, an idea, a LinkedIn post I like, I just add it all to the spreadsheet and then I tag it by different topics. So if I need to go search for it later, I can find it. And it has pretty much every idea I've ever come across that I like in the last 3 to 4 years is living in this document.
Wow, that's so cool. I'm gonna have to get one of those. Okay, and then you mentioned mindset being so important. And so I was wondering if you could share either a favorite quote or mantra or affirmation that has helped you get in the right mindset and maybe help you navigate through tough times.
It may be oversimplified, but I genuinely believe that everything is happening for a good purpose, even if I don't understand why. And even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's messy, even if I hate it in the moment, I also deeply believe that it's intentful and it's serving me. And having that mindset makes it much easier to navigate whatever's going on because you don't get as emotionally invested in that season. You know that it's leading somewhere purposeful.
I love that so much. Just a side note to anyone listening, Sam also does coaching for anyone, any startup founders that need some guidance or some mentorship along the way. So feel free to reach out. Sam, where is the best place that people can find you?
Probably LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. If you're a founder, also be active on LinkedIn. I think it's really slept on, but it's the best way to get your message out inexpensively right now and find customers, investors, advisors, etc.
Love it. Okay, so we'll link your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. Thank you so much, Sam. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast, and that's pretty much it. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.